And good evening, everybody, and welcome to Cooper Naylor Reports. Of course, I'm Cooper Naylor. Thanks for joining us. And tonight we've got a lot to talk about. We're going to talk about the NFL. The Super Bowl was just a week ago, well, a week after yesterday. And of course, there's been a lot of head coaching changes in the NFL. So I'm going to dive into that a little bit. Then I've got a little programming notice for you, and it is because of our April Bible study, so you will want to stick around for that. And we'll talk about Juwan Howard and, of course, Michigan basketball. He's suspended for the rest of the remainder of the Wolverines basketball season, but I'll get into that later in the show. But, of course, in between talk about the NFL and bring up about our programming alert, I will do a Q&A time so that you, the viewers, can give me, ask me anything you want, and I will answer it. And so that's what's going to happen for tonight. So let's go ahead and dive into the Super Bowl. But LA Rams, they win 23-20 in a game that was really fun to watch. And this was, when you think about this game, it was not all that high scoring. Think about it this way. The first half, it looked as if the Rams could have run away with this game had Odell Beckham Jr. not gotten hurt. This would really have been all Rams, because you think about it, Odell Beckham Jr. is he was the second best receiver on this team. He goes down with the ACL injury in I believe it was mid-second quarter, somewhere around there. And, of course, you see after that, Matthew Stafford starts to struggle a little bit. He, starts throwing interceptions. Cincinnati has this sense of life, look, we have a chance now. And Joe Burrow, he played a great game. And this was a game that at the end of it, it came down to, one, the Rams had that incredible drive there at the end of the game that helped them win the Super Bowl with Matthew Stafford throwing it to Cooper Kupp. I believe it was 4 times for 78 yards, I want to say. I'm not exactly sure, but that was big there at the end of the game. And then, of course, when they got on defense, Aaron Donald, the leader of that defense, he stepped up in the moments that the Rams needed it most. That's just how it was in that game. The Rams just played a better game. Cincinnati played a good game as well. But I will say this though. Would this game have been as competitive had the refs called T. Higgins for face mask on Jalen Ramsey? I believe it was the start of the third. Yeah, it was third quarter. Started third quarter. Joe Burrow throws it, and T. Higgins is the one who caught the long touchdown. You can argue that was a face mask right there, offensive face mask. So, had they called that, would that have been the turning point for this? I think it could have. You could have been looking at a totally different game in the sense of, Cincinnati may not have even been in the game. So, that was a big play. And had Odell Beckham Jr. not gone down, I feel like the Rams could have ran away with this, and it could have been just like the previous year and having a blowout as a Super Bowl. That's just how I feel like it could have ended up. And there were a lot of things in this game that really tossed it in the favor of the Bengals, and a lot that tossed in the favor of the Rams. So this was not a game that was exactly, one-sided. This was a good game. It was one that was low scoring, but had enough in it where you didn't get bored with the game. Not to mention to me, the I guess interesting is what you could say about the halftime show. Of course, I'm not as big into who they had at the Super Bowl. Of course, Colton, my brother, he could probably tell you more about the people they had at the halftime show, but that was interesting to me. But altogether, though, this was a great game to watch, and it was a fun game to watch, you know? It kept you on the edge of your seat. And it was one that it felt like you never wanted to quit watching this one. This was one that if you could just watch forever, you would. But let's be honest about this. If these teams had played 10 times in a season, you had the Rams and the Bengals playing 10 times, the only 10 games of the season, I feel like they split. Now, you can put in the chat what you think, whether you think they would have split or not. But in my opinion, I think the Rams and the Bengals, had played 10 games against each other, I feel like it would be 5-5. That's my honest opinion about it. And I feel like these two teams were good enough that they could be like that. So, I mean, 5-5. I think, that's just my honest opinion. And you go back and look at the Super Bowl, I think there were more Bengals fans there at SoFi Stadium than what the Rams were. So the Rams were really a road team. So this was, there were a lot of things that went into the Super Bowl. But let me tell you, of all the Super Bowls I've watched personally, I think this is probably the second most incredible one I've ever seen. That would be right behind Tom Brady bringing the Patriots back against the Falcons and beating the Falcons 34-28 in that game. Let's be honest. That was, in my lifetime of the Super Bowls I've watched, that was the best Super Bowl I have ever seen. Tom Brady, his Patriots are down 28-3, and he brings them back to win the Super Bowl 34-28 in overtime. That was the best Super Bowl I've ever experienced. Honestly, number 3 would be the Patriots' 28-24 win in 2015 against the Seahawks. That would be the next best one, in my opinion. So there have been a lot of good Super Bowls, but I feel like the one we just saw last week was the second best Super Bowl that I've experienced. And there have been a handful of bad ones, there's been a handful of good ones. But this was the second best, right behind Patriots-Falcons just a few years ago. Now, I want to turn my attention to some NFL coaches who have gotten fired and the head coaches. Either way, the Bears have fired Matt Nagy and they are hiring Matt Eberflus as their new head coach. So they are going from an offensive-minded head coach to now you have hired a defensive-minded Matt Eberflus. As I have gotten a note, so I have a request from Anonymous. Would the Giants beating the undefeated Patriots or Eagles beating the Patriots be better than any of the ones I've mentioned? Now that's a good, strong case. I mean, you really are getting into some interesting stuff here. I gotta say, Eagles Patriots a few years ago would probably be number 4 on my list. That's just me personally, how I feel. Giants beating the undefeated Patriots, that one I probably could replace. Maybe like maybe Patriots, Seahawks. But I don't know. You certainly have right there a strong top 5, though. That's for sure. These 5 Super Bowls we've just mentioned have been the 5 best, I mean, in a long time. So getting back to the head coaches, Matt Nagy, of course, I believe his first year, he was, his team was incredible in Chicago. I mean, making the NFL playoffs. I believe they made it to about the, I want to say they made it to the divisional round and lost. I want to say. So, and I think I want to say that's also the same year the Eagles made it all the way to the Super Bowl. Of course, this has been years. And, of course, after that, the Bears really haven't had all that much success. And you could also make an argument that without Mitch Trubisky, the Bears really, under Matt Nagy's system, was terrible. I mean, you go watch Justin Fields last year, and you could see there were some growing pains with that system. I mean, Justin Fields really, he's got a lot of improving to do. And I'm really interested to see like what Matt Eberflus is going to bring to this team. I mean, being a defensive guy, and also with being the Colts, I mean, have they really had? I mean, they made the playoffs, but I mean, I don't know. This is really interesting in my opinion. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I'm a Packers fan, so I don't want the Bears to do good, but at the same time, I mean, this is just an interesting situation right here. So, I don't know. Now, here's one I can relate to. So, the Broncos have fired defensive-minded head coach Vic Fangio, and they will hire offensive coordinator from the Green Bay Packers, Nathaniel Hackett. Now, Nathaniel Hackett has been there for I believe he's been there the 3 years that Matt LaFleur has been at Green Bay as head coach. And as you know, Green Bay, those 3 years, 13 wins in each season. So they had the 13-3. They had 2 13-3 years, and then this past season was 13-4. Of course, they had 2 straight times of going to the NFC Championship game, and then this year losing in the divisional rounds. So I think this is a great hire. And you look at Aaron Rodgers' unstable future as far as like is he going to be at the Packers, or is he going to be, is he going to be elsewhere? I mean, you look at Nathaniel Hackett, and this could be he could really probably pull and tug at Aaron Rodgers and be like, and give him a great opportunity. But also now, you look at Matt LaFleur. Of course, the quarterback's coach, Luke Getsy, for the Packers, was moved up to the offensive coordinator. And Tom Clements, who Aaron Rodgers has stated is one of his favorite coaches to have played under. Well, the Packers have hired Tom Clements to be the quarterback's coach. So this makes a lot of dilemma and a lot of drama here. What is going to happen with Aaron Rodgers? And whatever happens with Aaron Rodgers is really going to determine what happens with the NFL. Now, also, you got a lot of other quarterbacks that we have still got to see. You want to go out west to the NFC West, and you will see that Russell Wilson, you don't know whether he wants to be with the Seattle Seahawks or if he wants to be elsewhere. Jimmy Garoppolo, I believe he's requested a trade, and my personal place that I would really like him to go, and I think would be the best for Jimmy Garoppolo, would be Tampa Bay, taking over for Tom Brady, who retired. That would be an interesting spot for Jimmy Garoppolo. And I think for Russell Wilson, I think you go to New Orleans, and that's an interesting place for him. Aaron Rodgers, I think Denver, if Denver I mean, if Aaron Rodgers wants to leave, Denver would be a great place for him. And then you get into a lot of these other places. We don't know what's going to happen. So this is going to be an interesting season, an off season coming for the NFL. So I'm interested to see what happens. So next guy I want to turn my attention to. The Texans have fired David Culley after 1 year and hired Lovie Smith, who most recently was a head coach at the and I don't know if I'm getting this right, but I believe it's either the University of Illinois or Illinois University. Either way, he coached at Illinois, and well, it was he brought a program that was, let's just say it. It was a terrible football program, and he really, he put a little spark in there, and everybody was kind of like, he's building something here. But of course, he was fired, and now, last season, he was, most recently as the the defensive coordinator at the Houston Texans. Of course, after David Culley was fired, he was hired as the head coach. So this is the one that I'm really waiting to see what happens with Lovie Smith. Of course, his most notable accomplishment though would be that he won a Super Bowl. Well, let me rephrase that. He made a Super Bowl. He was with the Chicago Bears at the time, and that was when they played the Indianapolis Colts, the Tony Dungy coach team, and the Colts would end up winning that Super Bowl, being Tony Dungy's only Super Bowl as a head coach, and it would be Peyton Manning's first of 2 Super Bowls that he would win. So, I'm interested to see, what does Lovie Smith bring to the Texans? Well, I will say this. I think he will bring a defensive mind here, but I think he's going to bring a breath of fresh air. And I think this is going to be really interesting. And the big thing here, I believe, is however they handle the Deshaun Watson situation is going to determine a lot of things here for the Texans. Because, in my personal opinion, I think you've got to get rid of him. And a trade that one of my brothers have said that's really probably an interest. Well, I wouldn't say anybody said this, but I think Deshaun Watson for Kyler Murray would be a really interesting trade right here, because Kyler Murray somehow is mad at the Cardinals. So this would really be an interesting interesting trade right here. Kyler Murray to Houston for Deshaun Watson would be really interesting. And, that's something a lot of people are going to be interested to see. So, move on to the Jaguars. And, yeah, Urban Meyer's not even 1 season as the Jaguars head coach was... Yeah, it was bad, folks. You talk about a guy who in the offseason... you can go back and look at it. You tried getting Tim Tebow to be a tight end, which failed. Then you have all these controversies throughout the season, and you end up getting fired after reports of Urban Meyer. I think they said that he was abusing the players in a sense of speaking, like the way I mean that is like the way he handled practice. He would, I think, like the kicker said that he got kicked by him at one point. But it was, in all honesty, this was doomed from the start. And now you bring in a guy like Doug Peterson, which is a great hire, in my opinion. You get a Super Bowl winning head coach to now lead your program. So you get Doug Peterson, who coached Carson Wentz, and you got Trevor Lawrence sitting there, and I think he's the beneficiary of this. Doug Peterson is going to be really good, I think, for the Jaguars. So I'm interested to see what happens there. So John Gruden from the Raiders, he resigned, and he's going to be replaced by Josh McDaniels as the Raiders coach. This is the one I'm confused about. Because Josh McDaniels, he was the head coach of the Broncos. And it was an okay run for him. But I'm interested to see, like, what is he going to do here? I mean, I don't know. It's interesting here. I don't know if this is really a step up from Gruden or a step down. This one I just have to wait and watch because I'm not sure. And it's the same of this one. The Dolphins fired Brian Flores and hired Mike McDaniel. I don't know where the Dolphins are going to go right now. Hopefully Mike McDaniel can bring out the best in Tua Tagovailoa, because Tua is a great quarterback. He just has to have the best coaching. So I want to see what happens. I think Mike McDaniel could really bring something for the Dolphins. And then we're getting down to our last three coaches. Mike Zimmer was fired from the Vikings and they hired Kevin O'Connell, the offensive coordinator at the Rams. And everybody saw what the Rams did. Won the Super Bowl. And the Rams were a team they had to be there. You go look at all the stars they had on that team. Yeah, they had to be there. And Mike Zimmer, to me, with the Vikings, he was a good coach, in my opinion. But now, you get an offensive mind into Kevin O'Connell, who had a great season last year, and it's under the it's under the Sean McVay tree. I mean, Vikings could be scary, or they couldn't, because we don't know how Kevin O'Connell's going to do as head coach. So we'll see how this one plays out. The Saints. This one, it came as a little bit of a shock to all of us. Sean Payton retiring and will be replaced by the Saints defensive coordinator, Dennis Allen. This is one that really took the league by storm as a very, very surprising move. Of course, Sean Payton retired, and this was something not a lot of people saw coming. So, Dennis Allen has had great defenses with the Saints. He was the guy that was going to get this job. Everybody knew this. After Payton retired, Dennis Allen was going to get this job. So, he had a failed attempt at being a head coach with the Raiders, but we'll see what happens with the Saints. I think if you get the right players and the right staff, then you'll be fine. All right. Last head coach, Joe Judge fired from the Giants, and they hire Brian Dable. Honestly, I think this was a great move, getting rid of Joe Judge, because he was a awful head coach, and that's just being nice. There's a lot that happened with that Giants team that you could really say it was bad. So, yeah. Brian Dable brings in a great offense from the Bills, and you look at Josh Allen. Maybe if Brian Dable can replicate what he did for Josh Allen with Daniel Jones, this team will be interesting for sure. So, okay. Now we move into the part of the show that fans of this channel really and really do love, and it's called Q&A time. And so I am really excited to see what y'all have to say. So So, if y'all want to, if you want to ask me a question, then, go ahead. So, we will wait a couple minutes. Of course, there's been a lot of sports. Colton Naylor wants to know, what is my middle name? Why is that really important for my middle name? I don't understand. Now he wants to know, what is your favorite color? Well, I think red would be my favorite color. Okay, here's one I am interested in answering. What did you think about Curry in the All-Star game? Well, I mean, you think about it. That was insane. 16 three-pointers, 50 points. I mean, you gotta be honest. That was incredible. That was just insane. And it was nothing. I mean, yeah, that was insane. It was insane. And Chris Naylor says NBA All-Star Game is a joke. Yeah, it kind of is. What is a funny joke, I don't know. Yeah. So, I'll take your questions for the next few minutes, and then at about 7:35, I'm going to move on to my programming alert that I really want to get to. And then, of course, after that, we will have the, talk about Michigan basketball, and that'll be it. Oh no! Did you hear about the kidnapping? Kidnapping at school. It's okay. He woke up. Yep. That's a really good joke. I like that one. Yeah. Yeah. So about 3 more minutes. I'm gonna answer your questions, and then I'm gonna move on. Of course. Got a lot to talk about as far as programming alert. Okay. Will Kyler Murray be traded before Russell Wilson if Kyler wants out? Oh, it's a possibility. It really is. And I mean, it's like what I said earlier. I think if the Texans were to trade Deshaun Watson, it'd make things really interesting. So, we'll see. Who is the worst coaching hire this season? And then Chris Naylor also said coaching, college or pro. Worst, in my opinion, I don't know. Honestly, probably I really don't know, because they've all been kind of interesting. Honestly, the one I'm really interested, though, would be Dan Lanning at Oregon. That's the one. I mean, I don't know if you would really say worst, but I mean, it's the one that I'm curious about to see, like, what will happen. I think that's the most interesting one. So, we'll see what happens, but, Corey Naylor saying, Nevada hiring Brian Polian 2.0. Huh. Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and move on. Of course. Okay, so the programming alert, the April Bible study will be moved from Monday the 18th to Friday the 22nd. Of course, that will be the final part of the Come Back Together series. I started it earlier this month. We'll be coming back in 2 weeks and bringing you the second part. But then April 22nd now will be the day that we will bring in the April Bible study that will finish the Come Back Together series. It was a great series, well received so far, so that is good, and had a great time making that too. I mean, that was a great first part, and I enjoyed it, and hope to bring y'all Bible studies every month. So just keep your eye out for that. And so that'll be coming up. And then last thing I want to talk about tonight, Michigan basketball head coach Juwan Howard is going to miss. Michigan basketball head coach suspended for rest of Wolverines regular season. Of course, I had a typo right there. So, magic of editing and stuff. You can fix that when you want to. So, this was a stupid incident anyway. So, if I'll break it down for you here. So, 15 seconds left in the basketball game against Wisconsin. Greg Gard, head coach of the Wisconsin basketball team, he calls a timeout with 15 seconds to go because he's got the backups in. And Juwan Howard has decided to press Wisconsin with 15 seconds left to go. And it's, I believe, a 14-point game still. I don't know what the score was at this time. But either way, Michigan has no chance to win the game at this point. And Juwan Howard gets mad over Greg Gard calling the timeout for Wisconsin to make it easier on his backups to end the game. I mean, if you're looking at it from Greg Gard's perspective, the game's over and he doesn't want a bad situation for his backups. So he calls timeout, trying to help his team. And so after this happens, the game ends, of course, but then Juwan Howard, he delays himself getting into the handshaking line after the game because that's what a lot of teams. Well, that's what you do in college basketball. You congratulate the other team by shaking hands and telling them good game, and that's what they do in high school. But the NBA is kind of a different thing. Professional sports is very different from college sports. Of course, college sports, there's a whole lot more of sportsmanship, in my opinion, than what there is in the professionals. Either way, but Juwan Howard decides that he's going to get in the handshaking line, but then him and Greg Gard, the two head coaches, meet, and it was not pretty. So, to break it down first, Juwan Howard, he doesn't want to shake hands with him. And Juwan Howard apparently says something to Greg Gard. So Greg Gard, he grabs Juwan Howard, and they get into a little bit of a scuffle. No punches thrown here. It's just a shouting match at this point. Then, here comes in the players and the coaching staffs, and Juwan Howard, while being pushed back, he slaps Wisconsin's assistant coach. So, and this leads to a brawl that eventually came to an end, but what you see here is a head coach. Well, I mean, both head coaches fail to represent their schools in a orderly fashion. Folks, let me tell you something. The head coach is the leader of the program. The leader of the program, and you can't do anything but go out there and start fussing and fighting and cause a brawl. Think about it this way, though. What happens if Juwan Howard hits a player? He would have been fired immediately. He got suspended for the rest of the season. I agree with that. But look, folks, this was a bad situation. And I think this should be sent as a message that this cannot be tolerated in college athletics or anywhere. So, Juwan Howard will be out for the rest of the regular season for the Wolverines. But of course, he'll be back in the Big Ten tournament. I'll tell you what, though. I really don't know what's going to happen, though. This is a bad situation, and this should have never happened. And, folks, this is just a situation where the leader of the team, the head coach, just fails to represent his school the proper way. So, I mean, that's what you had, and we'll see where it goes from there, but it was a very stupid situation. So, of course, we will be back with Cooper Naylor Reports next month. Of course, in between Cooper Naylor Reports and studying the Bible, of course, we have the YouTube Shorts that we will be doing. So, various things we'll be doing with the YouTube Shorts. We're excited about that. But, of course, we want to thank you all for watching this tonight. And, of course, we hope that you enjoyed this. And we will see you again next week with a YouTube Short. Goodbye, everybody.